Thank you for joining us for the 2024 program series, Living Well Wednesday. My name is Melinda Daly, Family Consumer Science Agent in the Sunflower Extension District, and I will be your host for today. Our Living Well Wednesday is a virtual learning series hosted by K-State Research and Extension, Family and Consumer Sciences professionals from across the state of Kansas. Many of our topics will touch on a wide variety of essential skills that empower you and your family to live, work, and thrive. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules. Um, be, be respectful and open of others throughout the presentation. Feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box and comments into the chat box. The Q&A box does have a feature where you can ask anonymously if you are more comfortable with that. Our monitor will make sure to go over the questions and at the end of the presentation. Today's session will be recorded and posted to our Living Well Wednesday webpage along with additional resources. You will be able to find all future and past programs on our website as well. Lastly, a friendly reminder, this is our third webinar in the fall series, 24 series. Be sure to check our Living Well Wednesday for additional details on registration and topics in the future and find recordings of previous webinars. 25 series will start on February 5th, in February with 52 ways to climate proof your finances. In March will be pitching pennies in the kitchen. And in April, the program will be on money habitudes. Please join us. Next slide. We do want to acknowledge that KSRE is an equal opportunity employer. Therefore, we do not discriminate against anyone. So if there is a special request or concern that you need to allow for you to attend our programs, please reach out to us. We want to thank our presenter for joining us today. Carolyn Crouch is a KSRE Extension Agent and Director in the West Plains Extension District. With that, I will turn it over to our presenter today. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me join today and give this topic. I've been in Extension for a little over 22 years, almost 23 years, and this is a topic that it seems like never slows down. So let's simplify our space. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we agents are not health professionals, and that if you feel like this is something more than clutter, that you might seek a health professional instead of just listening to what I have to say to share this with you. But go to the next slide. So let's just talk about simplifying our space. I first want to talk about hoarding. So hoarding is different than clutter. Between 700,000 and 1.4 million people in the United States exhibit compulsive hoarding behavior. Compulsive hoarding or compulsive hoarding syndrome can be a symptom of OCD. Hoarding is defined as the excessive acquisition of items and the inability to discard those items, and the disorganization and clutter that impairs function. And that's the source there is Mayo. So often I get the question, am I a hoarder? When I do these classes in person, many times I'll ask the guests, hey, do you guys remember your first bicycle or your first car? And most people will say yes. And then I'll say, well, do you still own that? And most people do not, although it seems like there'll be one person in the crowd that says, yeah, the bike's still hanging in the barn at the farm. But for the most part, we have our memories without needing to hold on to the items. But an accumulation of large quantities of objects or documentation, papers, possessions beyond apparent necessity or pleasure could be an indication of a hoarder. People that hoard struggle with parting and letting go of possessions. They have a fear of not having what they need when they need it in the future for whatever reason. They may also have a wide range of interest in uncompleted projects. Their attention span is short, and the next item or the next interest is what they are. It's all about to them, something that keeps them motivated. Um, a hoarder often makes decisions differently than other folks because they don't see this as a problem. It's hard to treat a disorder when somebody may not see it as an issue. But, that feeling of safety and comfort to a hoarding is very real. And so that, they struggle with letting items go. Also, hoarders tend to have very few relationships. And that's a sign of a hoarder because they can't accept people into their homes because of the way they are. But the relationships they have are usually a long term. So also a hoarder, the a contributing factor is age. A lot of times a hoarder will start collecting things at a very young age, maybe family history. Sometimes a stressful life events will cause somebody to hoard, like they lost a spouse, therefore they are unable to get rid of anything that may have belonged to that spouse. But it's hard because of the social isolation of that, what that this problem can occur. So let's people often ask, are they a hoarder? Well, my question to them is, are you saving or collecting things you don't need? Just because you're given something as a gift doesn't mean you automatically have to start collecting multiples of them. And it's okay to tell people that that's not your thing, and it's okay, if you don't. Often people give us multiple things because they don't know what else to do for us. So do you keep collecting things even though you know you shouldn't have it? Do you have a fear of losing something important like paperwork? Is the amount of stuff around your home hard to make it hard for you to sleep, sit, cook, bathe, or socialize? And have your family or friends ever expressed any concern about the amount of stuff that you own? If so, that could be an indication that you might be teetering on that. To help you to understand it just a little bit, the Institute for Challenging Disorganization has this really cool clutter hoarding scale. And you can find it on their website right there. And it talks about the scale quick reference. There's 5 levels, whether or not you feel like you're a hoarder or not. And it'll talk about like, okay, if you have pets, are there any problems with that? All the way down to like there are dead animals in your home. So that scale, it'll walk you through whether or not you're a hoarder. They say level 3, that yellow level, is kind of it could probably go anyway, either way. So if you have somebody that you want to help with this issue, you could take this information and you could kind of see where you stand on that. Not everybody, just because you have clutter, makes you a hoarder. So okay, so I wanted to get through that because that's always the question. Do I have too much stuff or am I a hoarder? So let's go on to well, with organization comes empowerment, and I think that's a true statement. So, but let's go ahead and move on and talk about the clutter. I also want to say here that clutter is different than hoarding. So clutter is just randomness that affects you. It affects our time and our pocketbook, our health, and our family for all the same reasons. It can also affect your work, and it can affect your friends. And so, and a lot of people like, well, how is that? How does my stuff affect all those areas of my life? Well, clutter is an overburdened and a disorganized household. However, clutter can also be an overburdened calendar. Our family can be burdened with all the things that we are trying to do. But what it looks like, that kind of depends. It's normal for us to have overabundance of items due to easy money. Back in the day when credit became available to everybody, it was real easy to get an overabundance of stuff. It was easy to collect more than what we ever needed or could use at any given time. But sometimes clutter isn't always the visible amounts of what we see. that can be the issue. And people view clutter at different levels depending on where they're at in life. Older folks, they're either cleaned out and downsized and living free, or they have a lot of stuff and they just don't know what to do with it. Um, you know, but clutter is different for everybody. And we just need to respect that. We love our items. That's just all there is to it. And what works for me may not work for somebody else. But with clutter also becomes a only in America do we store a vehicle worth thousands of dollars out in the elements while we put worthless junk in boxes in our garages. Only in America do we do that kind of thing. So that just goes to tell you where you need to balance that cost issue. And also in homes, if we are buying homes that are bigger in order to store stuff, we don't even know what we're storing, or we rent storage spaces for long term because we have stuff that we don't know what to do with. I mean, that is an issue. And just think about what you could do with that money. If a storage unit costs you $200 a month, that is $2,400 a year. You could be taking a very nice vacation for $2,400 a year, or 5 grand every 2 years. So, people have to kind of look at the terms of what that clutter is costing them. Also, people like to buy on sale. They like to stock up. If you live someplace where you can get to a grocery store easy, to me, that is not worth it, especially if you are purchasing items on a credit card and paying interest. Oftentimes, let's say a grocery store will have something on sale 10% off, but if you're paying 20% interest on like item that just because it's on sale currently, you're really not saving any money. And if you have to run multiple freezers and refrigerators to keep your stockpile going. I mean, it's different if have a beef in a freezer, that's one thing. But if you got to run multiple refrigerators to stockpile your groceries, then how much money are you really saving if you're running extra electricity and so on and so forth. So those are some things just to think about when it comes to clutter. But clutter also costs us effort. I mean, think about it. When you are cleaning house, how much time do you spend dusting little trinkets? And if those little trinkets make you happy, perfect. If that's how you want to spend your time. I live in the country. We have an arena right on the south side of our house. The wind blows out of the south all summer, and my house gets dusty. And the last thing I want to do is spend hours dusting trinkets. So I don't have little trinkets all over my house for that simple reason, because that's not how I want to spend my time and effort. But clutter can also cost us some relationships. If you've got a home that's got so much in it that you can't have visitors, then it can cost you relationship or time with those folks. Um, so the question is, where do we start? Most people go, well, I don't know where to start. Well, this answer isn't so easy depending on what you've got going on in your life. And some of the decisions can be hard. Regardless, nothing is achieved if we don't just begin. So what you want to do is you want to prioritize what you want to accomplish. Not every room, not every space, not every calendar needs to be done all at one time. I recommend that you set a plan for action on paper so you can cross those tasks off when they're completed, because nothing makes us feel better than when we complete a task and we know that we're making some progress. I truly think that the first place a person needs to start is decluttering your calendars and decluttering your mind if you can. Say no if it's not that important to you. If someone asks you to help with one more thing, at some point you've got to have time for yourself and your family. Our children don't have to be involved in everything, and we don't have to be in charge of everything. Just learn to say no. It's taken me a long time to get to this point, but when you say no, don't follow it up with maybe next time or ask me again. Don't do that, because you're leaving yourself open to be asked to fill your calendar again. Instead, maybe say, well, I wish I could, but this just won't work for me. Or maybe say, uh, thanks for asking, but I just can't make that work today. I appreciate your thoughts. Just don't give them that lead into asking you again. And just don't open yourself up for further commitments. Let other people step up to the plate. We don't always have to be our pinch hitters. So when you want to start to declutter, I say start with a small area at a time. It's best to start small and then work your way into something bigger, because if you start too big and get overwhelmed, you just won't move forward. So start with a small area, because slow but steady is the best way to go. Always try to finish up what you start so it doesn't leave a bigger mess. Some people feel like they don't have enough time, but you'd be surprised what you can do in 10 minutes. So set a timer if you need a break every now and then. And once you remove from the space the items that do not belong there, you want to then make some decisions about that. I like just to plug in some music and get busy. A lot of people say, if you have 15 minutes, pick a drawer. If you have an hour, pick a closet. If you have all day, tackle something bigger. If you're going to tackle something bigger, make sure that you have prepared yourself to do so. Have whatever tools you're going to need to use, and we'll talk about those here in a minute. Also, make sure you have the time set aside. Um, have something easy to go for lunch so you don't have to stop and make a lunch or something of that nature. But just set aside some time and get moving through with that. I also talk a little bit with folks in person about what we have that we want to declutter and why we keep that. And we'll discuss that here in a little bit. But the next thing people ask me about a lot is how to get it under control, like your paper clutter. I try to tell people handle it as little as possible. Don't pick up the mail, bring it, set it on the table for 2 days later for you sort it and then set it aside again. And then 2 days later, deal with, the trash or whatever. Try to handle it as least as possible. When you pick up your mail, as you're walking into the house, whatever, sort the junk from the other. Um, Immediately throw the junk away or shred it, whatever it is that you want to do. And then put the other things that are important either in your pay your bill pile or folder or drawer, whatever you have set aside for that. And then other things that you might need to handle. I really, really do try to stress to handle the paper clutter only once or twice. If you have a receipt, file it immediately. A 7-year rotation, if you can keep those boxes, you can get boxes for files that are specifically for that make really nice file holders, and you can date them, and then immediately, you can rotate those out to try to get that paper clutter under control. Magazines, newspaper, we read the newspaper, we'll set it aside, but why are you setting it aside? If there's something in it you want immediately, remove it from the paper and then dispose of the rest of the paper or recycle it. A lot of times magazines, like our local library here, will recycle magazines, and that you can bring them in and people can pick them up. They just have a shelf where you can drop off your magazines and people can pick them up and read them for free. And so I just suggest removing your label off of them and recycling them immediately. Have a place that you put magazines in as soon as you're done reading them or to share with them. But designate a particular place in your home for those important papers. A lot of them are digital now, which is great, but make sure that you keep like items together. And if they are very important, you might want to even just put those in like a safety deposit box. However, make sure people know where those keys are at, and make sure you have other people on that signature card, and make sure that you keep a list of what's in there. That'll save you a lot of time looking for other items another day. So let's talk about household items, because I think this is one of the things that people feel overwhelmed about. Um, this shouldn't be so hard to do, but it is. So with household items, again, make a plan. Start small to prevent yourself from becoming overwhelmed. There's lots of methods that you can use to do to sort your household items, and I think it's most important that you make some decisions immediately. Things to keep, things to donate, and things to throw away. And we could talk a little bit about that, but the donation, you want to remove those from your home immediately, whether it's put it in the trunk of your car to take them and donate it ASAP, or things to throw away and immediately remove them and take them out to the trash can. The things to keep, the thing about that is that you need to put them away immediately. When I go through my house, I like to take a basket with me, throw everything in the basket that doesn't belong where it's at, and then I walk from room to room and put it away. I find that to be easier than back and forth, back and forth. And another thing, just stop trying to buy new things, and you will find quite quickly that it's easier to get your clutter under control. So when to keep or not to keep something. If you haven't used it in the last year, donate it or toss it. If you don't love it, donate it or toss it. If it doesn't have sentimental value to you and you don't use or love it, donate it or toss it. If it has sentimental value, even if you don't love it or you haven't used it, you can keep it, but only if you have a place to put it. When we have items in our home, everything needs to have a home or a place to stay. If you don't have a spot for it in your home, do you really need it? One of the things I often, with like kitchen appliances, I bet if you think about this a little bit, you might find that you have plenty of kitchen appliances in your house that you never use. And the reason why is that they're in the very back of the cabinet or they're put in storage somewhere because you don't have space in your kitchen. If you can't grab them immediately to use them, you're probably not going to dig them out and use them later. So, you know, electric skillet. I never dig my electric skillet out. Um, and so I decided I didn't need it anymore. The reason I had it is when we used to rodeo pretty hard with our kids, that's how I cooked for them in the horse trailer. But at home, I just pull out a skillet and use a skillet on my stovetop. If I'm going to use electric skillet, do I need a stove? So I decided that I didn't need both. And so I donated my electric skillet. Because everything needs to have a home and a place to stay. And if it's clear in the back of my cabinet, I'm not going to dig it out to use it. I just won't. So if it's not available to you, you probably are not going to use it. So let's talk a little bit about items you feel obligated to keep or sentimental value. These are the items that people say, yeah, but it was my grandmother's, or somebody gave me that as a gift. My daughter once told me that when you receive a gift, the purpose was done when you received it or gave it. Like when you give a gift, that gift served its purpose. You gave a gift. And when you receive it, the same thing. There's no obligation to keep something that somebody gave you unless you specifically asked for it. Right now is a good time of the year to be thinking about this. If it's not something that you really wanted, um, do you feel like you should keep it? I received some wedding gifts years ago when I got married, and I felt obligated to use these wedding gifts in my space in my home, although I never enjoyed them. And it took me a long time to go, you know what? I pay for the mortgage in my home. I should be able to have on in my home the things that bring me joy, not that somebody gave them to me because they felt like I needed them. And when I come up with that mindset, that changed a lot of things for me. So I removed the items from my home that did not bring me joy, that somebody else gave me, that because they felt like they needed to give me a wedding gift. Um, they weren't my taste, they weren't my style. So, you decide what is important to you because that space is your space, and only you should be able to decide what brings you joy in that space. When it comes to sentimental value, there's some other concerns there. However, if items are not used, there's no ownership to them. So if you have good china and you don't use that during family meals, your grandchildren won't have any stakehold in it. They have no value to them because it's just dishes that grandmother had, not dishes that we used at every Easter and every holiday. So if a sentimental value item doesn't have any value to you, is it really worth holding on to? However, another thing is the sentimental items, if you don't know where they come from or anything of that nature, Um, why would you keep something? You know, a lot of people ask me about family photos, and that's great. We've got boxes of family photos, but if you don't know who they are and there's nobody that can identify them, there's no reason to hold on to them. I tell this story often about I have a sister and I was visiting her and she had this photo frame on her wall. It was like, I don't know, very decorative. It had like three photo frames that hung off of it. And she had it hanging up there for a year or so. And every time I go, I'd look at this photo frame and I think, who are those people? So one time I was down there and her daughter-in-law was there as well. And I finally said, Cheryl, I said, who are these folks in these photo frames? And because I didn't recognize them, thinking maybe they were her husband's family. And she goes, I don't know. She goes, those are the photos that came in the frame. I've just never taken the time to swap them out yet. And I said, for over a year, I've been trying to figure out who these people are. And her daughter-in-law goes, are you telling me I would have kept those photos for my entire life and they're not even anybody that belongs to our family? So that's just a little story to share that not everything we have in our possession maybe belongs to us. Um, and another thing, I have a story of my mom. My mom's downsizing, moving to town, and so it's been a journey for us. And she asked us all, what's something you want? Well, I live in a little house, so I said, well, I want the butter churn that was I always used as a kid making butter on the farm, because I have memories of doing that. And I wanted the quilt that my grandma had done for my mom when she got married. Those are the only two things I wanted because it's really the only two things that I really have space for. And so I got those. So then my mom always feels obligated to make sure that the rest of the kids have something similar, right? So she has some other quilts and she tried to give my sister one of those quilts. And Cheryl's like, Mom, where did this quilt come from? And my mom had no idea where this quilt come from. It wasn't a family heirloom, but she felt like my sister needed a quilt because she gave me a quilt. However, my sister was like, I don't need somebody's quilt that didn't belong to the family. So once you know the history of those things, it makes it easier to decide whether it's important enough to keep in your home and to take up space in your home. So if you don't know the history behind something, there's really no really big reason to keep it. My mom always tells me that this generation doesn't want anything of the past generation. And I tell her, well, it's because you lived too long. And she laughs at me and says, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, back in the day, people kind of passed about the time the next generation was needing goods. So we shared those, right? Well, I've got a house full of furniture that I've chosen that I like, and I don't need anything that was my mom's. And yet she's got two houses full because she kept everything that was her mom's. But, we don't have space because we've already filled our space with items. Now, there are a few things I've got my grandmother's furniture in one of my spare bedrooms, but I didn't take that or get that until my daughter moved out because it wasn't what she wanted in her bedroom. So, um, you have to really think about just because it comes from family doesn't mean one, it has any values to the family. And if you don't know anything about it, then you don't want to keep it. Back to the photo thing. If there are photos of folks you don't know and can't be identified, toss them. If there are photos to somebody's trip that they took to the Rocky Mountains back in 1964, and there's not a body in them other than, I mean, at all, other, it's just a photo of the landscape, you don't need to keep those items. Those are items that, I mean, you can find those photos on the internet at this point, so you don't really have to keep any of those types of photos, but please try to get them um, labeled as soon as you can if you do have some old photos. So what are some of the methods that we can use to declutter our space? I personally like the box method. Actually, I don't really I use a box for things I want to donate. So I can shut it up, stick it in my car and take it right there. But I use a basket for the things I want to keep so I can carry it around and put it away. Um, but that box method, a box to keep, toss, donate, and then you can have another box, like something you need to think about a little bit more. That's okay, because decluttering shouldn't be stressful. It should give you an opportunity to de-stress. Um, One of the things that I do and that my children now do because we did it when they were at home too is we have a bag. I have a bag that hangs on the door handle of one of our bedrooms, and every time I find something that I don't need or put something on that I no longer want to wear or keep, I stick it in that bag. And when that bag is full, I take it and I donate it. It just makes it handy to always have some place to go with something instead of going, oh, I don't like that and put it back in my closet. I make a decision and I'll do away with it. A lot of people keep clothes because they think they're going to get back into them, or they're going to lose some weight. That's well and dandy because clothes can be expensive. However, um, if it's been 10 years, guys, it's time to part with them. I tell myself, if I'm going to get to that point, I'm going to buy myself some new clothes. So I don't keep clothes in my house that I can't wear. There's just no reason for that. I also talk about a little bit, let's talk about like socks in your drawer. We all have socks that we don't like to wear. And if we're not going to wear them, why do we keep them? Maybe somebody else could use them. Times are hard for some folks. So if you have it to share, share. Same thing with, we have all kinds of clothing articles that we keep because we feel obligated to do that. And there really isn't any reason. One of the methods I use in my closet, I use this reverse hanger method. Some of you might have heard about this. Every season, I actually do it about every 3 months, but every season you reverse the hangers in your closet backwards. And as you wear an item and you rehang it the way you should from the front. And at the end of the season, you can see which seasonal items you didn't wear because the hangers are still backwards. And then you can make some decisions on whether or not those items you want to go ahead and get rid of. This is very effective. Um, you know, and you could tell yourself, okay, I forgot I had that. Well, that's fine. You can keep it another season, but if it happens again, and you could buy hangers of different colors if that would help you rearrange things. Uh, Another method is this number times number times number method. And people are like, well, what is that? And it's like, well, you just pick a number. You could go, 12 by 12 by 12 or 2 by 2, or whatever it might be. But whatever it is you would find, let's say we pick the number 4. We find 4 items to donate, 4 items to throw away, 4 items to put away in 4 days. So, so it can be pretty effective, only you have to remember that. So I like that bag a day thing, not bag a day, but I hang a bag every day and use that. If I just don't like it or can't find a place for it or something, I just go ahead and stick it in my bag to donate. Also, to simplify your space, let's talk about, what to do with certain items. If it's broken, chuck it. If it's stained, chuck it. Ripped, throw it away. Outdated, or stinky, throw it away. I volunteer at our local thrift store, our Ministerial Alliance thrift store called Hope's Closet here in town. And every Saturday, and we deal with this all the time. Don't donate it if it is stained horribly. Nobody else is going to wear that, or if it's broken. We just have to throw those things away if they're ripped, outdated, or if we also have a policy that we don't put out items that smell like smoke, animals, or covered in animal hair. So any of those kinds of things, we just go ahead and throw them away, and you should too. I'm not sure why anybody would keep broken or batteries that are not charged anymore, anything that's stained. You're not going to wear it. I talk about, for a long time, so I grew up fairly poor, and I didn't have a lot, and I always felt like I needed to keep, my old shoes to mow in. Well, after so long, I have 3 pairs of mowing shoes, and so that's just ridiculous. Same thing with like a mowing shirt or mowing, clothes to do chores in. I just don't need them. I'll go out and I'll mow and I'll wash those clothes and put them back in my drawer. So the next time I mow, I can put the same clothes on. I don't have to have multiple outfits to mow in. So, I've come a long ways, but I've gotten to that point. Donate something if it's no longer needed. If you have extra items, it doesn't fit or it doesn't bring you joy. If you have a sweater that's very clingy, even though you like the color, if you're never going to wear it because it clings too much, go ahead and donate it. Also, don't feel obligated to keep something that you just don't like. If you don't like it, you don't like it. You're never going to wear it. Or if you have no space for it. I know there are folks who have multiple closets, walk-in closets. My husband and I split an 8-foot closet. I get 4 feet, he gets 4 feet, and he does not allow me an inch on his side. because it's just that's just how we do it. And so when my closet gets too full, I go through it and decide how many black shirts do I need, how many, I wear lots of black and purple, and how much of that do I need? How many t-shirts, how many 4-H t-shirts did I get every year that, I can share that love a little bit. But if you decide to store something, make sure you label all those containers. The suggestion is to tape them shut and date them and have a designated spot where you can put those tubs or containers and know what you have in them and where. If you've got stuff in containers and you're like, I don't even know what's in that box, maybe there's not anything in that box you need. A lot of people say just get rid of it. I don't suggest that. I suggest you open it up, you look at it, take a hard look at it, and really ask yourself, um, if there's anything in that box that you need. Um, we have so much stuff. Can you just imagine what we could do if we wouldn't have spent money on that stuff? Um, I like to coupon, so I purchase things at savings, but I make sure that I pay cash for them. Otherwise, I'm not saving much. So how do we stop the clutter? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So what do we keep? Um, Important documents. Well, what is important? That's for you to decide, but make sure you have a place to put that. Old family photos, we've talked about that. Children's items, sentimental value items like that. My mom kept our kids' toys for years and years and gave them to us. And I'm like, I don't want those things. They're dirty. If they can't be washed, do you really want to share them with your grandchildren if they're filthy? So, keep that in mind and ask your kids, hey, what of these things do you want? And check with them to see if there's anything there that they want. Because if they don't want it, you shouldn't feel obligated to keep it either. And when it comes to, oops, excuse me, family heirlooms, just make sure that you ask other family members if anybody wants them before you throw them out. Because I think that's important to know that there could be something that another that's important to somebody else. The big items are not always the most the most wanted items. I know my husband, when his grandparents had their estate sale, he wanted the knocker on the door that said Crouch. There wasn't really anything else that he really desired other than that particular thing. So it doesn't, just because it's bigger doesn't mean that somebody wants it. So how do you stop that clutter? I tell people just quit shopping. Start with a month, have a no spend month. See what you can do. Do that for food as well. Eat what's in your cabinets. Just tell yourself you're not spending any money this month. I will tell you that what makes that is so cool. You will see the savings in your finances too. It's not just you're stopping the clutter from coming into your house. It's that you begin to save as well. And it makes it easy when you see that savings. If a month you can do it for a month, great. Then give yourself 3 months and then give yourself 6 months to see if you can keep yourself from buying a new pair of shoes or a new jacket or a new blouse or the things that we absolutely don't have to have. Probably none of us are naked, so we probably don't need more clothing. There might be, with kids, that's different. They grow. So that's a little bit different. But for ourselves, we might find that we can just do without. Also, routine purging is makes it easier all the time. If you just constantly are purging and doing that, it does get easier with time. You start to see that, hey, I don't need 14 spatulas. I do dishes every day. Two is plenty. If you've only got 4 burners on your stove, do you need more than 4 spatulas or 4 spoons or 4 tongs at any given time? You're only got 4 spots you're cooking with. So if you think about that, it gets easier. Now, if you live alone and you do dishes once every 3 days, you might need a few more. However, more than likely you're not cooking a big meal and having so many burners running either. So, it's everybody's a little bit different depending on where they're at and their needs. But we can declutter. However, it might continue. So, why does it continue? Well, we get gifts and If we don't treat the symptoms, why people will clutter, it won't get better. And so, some people just feel helpless as where to start. When my mom started the process to downsize and move to town, um, she was very overwhelmed. My older sister went down and they started with one spot, and then they moved to the next spot. And by the time my sister left, my mom was like, "Okay, I can do this." So every day, every morning through the summer, she'd go down when it was cooler and work for just a couple hours. And make and she was slowly making some progress. And so, if you need some help, get some help. There will be lots of folks who'd be willing to help. But if there's little change, there'll be little change in the cluttering if there's no behavior change. So if you don't quit buying, your house won't become decluttered. And like I said, if it's more than what you or your family needs, be sure to seek a mental whoops, I just noticed typo, a mental health professional, because there are more than one reasons why we have more than what we have. Um, you know, just that behavior change of what you're spending your money on and what you're bringing into your house can make a huge difference. So, like I said, to simplify your space, when in doubt, throw it out. Use it or lose it. That's my thing all the time. If I'm not using it, I'm going to lose it. And I try to share. If you want to have a garage sale, that's fine. But make sure that you have a space to put those things until you're ready to do that garage sale. And once you're done with your sale, take anything that you removed from your home that did not sell and donate it. Don't save it again. It always make sure you do something now and not later. However, I usually don't give this particular uh, um, program in December. And right now, with the holidays and everything going on, starting something now may not be in your best interest. So wait till after the first year, get your calendars decluttered, get your mindsets ready to go, and then start your process. Make a place for everything and put everything in its place. We don't leave silverware out on the countertops because we are out of space in our silverware drawer. If that's the case, we probably have too much silverware drawer, and we shouldn't do that with other items either. So just take some steps, even if they're small ones. And something I've been saving for years is do your giving while you're living, so you'll be knowing where it's going. And that's something I've said for years based off of, people sharing family items. I tell my mom all the time, quit spending your money on Christmas gifts, Mom. You got an overabundance of things to share. Save your time from shopping. So when she started doing this, so one year all of my sisters and I got a vase that belonged to my grandmother. And so that was so much more meaningful than something my mom would have went to Walmart and bought for me. So my mom has actually started doing this. One year, all my nephews received uh, knife, pocket knife, that belonged to my dad after he passed away. So those are the kinds of things you can do. Mom saved a bunch of money by not shopping for all of us, and she removed some things out of her space that she really doesn't have uh, space in her house with her new house. So, do your giving while you're living, so you'll be knowing where it's going. And I also share that when we're talking about uh, passing on non-titled property after death. So, and guys, it's okay. It's okay to repeat clothes. You don't have to get new clothes every season. It's okay not to upgrade your phone every year. Those are expensive. Secondhand items are okay. Thrifted items are fine. It's okay to live in a smaller, simpler house, and it's okay to have less. Nobody's going to judge you for it. And those who do are not the right people to be around anyway. So remember, there's just beauty and simplicity, and our joy shouldn't come from things. Our joy should uh, come to us in experiences and those that we have around us. And I always say, collect some memories, not stuff. Take your children on trips instead of over purchasing items. And if you get overwhelmed, that's okay. Ask a friend to help. They're usually less biased when helping. I know I've helped friends do this a lot, and it's easier to talk reason with them when I don't have that ownership of that item. So, ask a friend to help. None of them are going to judge you. They just, we want to help our friends. So, um, here's some quotes that I found. Don't own so much clutter that you'll be relieved to see your house catch fire. Bottom line is, if you do not use it or need it, it's clutter and it needs to go. Stop waiting for the perfect time to get organized. Take this moment and make some progress. You know, like I said, with the holidays, it might not be in your best time. But however, if you've put out Christmas and you've got a couple totes of Christmas decorations that you have not used, um, share the love. There's a lot of folks who may need those decorations. Life is messy and unpredictable, and that's okay. Fix what you can, adapt to what you can't, and keep doing your best. That's all that anybody ever asks. I did recently see something on Facebook that I wanted to share because I thought it made a lot of sense. Here in December, it's time to declutter, detach, destash, and delete anything that devalues your life. So that's just where I want to end. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol Ann. You shared some really great information there. There are a couple of questions if
Okay.
you have time. Um, so Deborah asks regarding obligated items, gifts giving and receiving, can we address how we might change the mindset of the obligation that we have to give a gift for a wedding, birthday, Christmas, whatever, and tie it into it's actually helping the receiver by not giving a gift unless it's specifically something the receiver asked for.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, so back in the day, when folks got married, I think it's traditional to give household items because people were setting up their house. I have a daughter getting married on Saturday. She has lived on her own for many years, and she doesn't need a lot of household items. However, people consider it rude for them to request funds. Um, she would like to, so we didn't go down that, but as somebody that is a giver, I would just assume give them money to use on something that they could, whether it's a honeymoon in that memory versus I don't know if they need more wooden spoons in their kitchen. So, as far as changing that mindset, maybe it's what we change our mindset of what we're given. Maybe give, if you're going to spend $15, give them $15 if that's what your limit is. We don't always have to have a tangible gift. And as a receiver, if your house is full and you really don't want anything more, just tell folks, I just don't need any more in my house. Don't say, "Oh, I don't want anything." No, tell them the reason why. Say, I have everything I need and I really don't want one more item in my house. And I would just appreciate your presence versus your presence. And most people go, okay. Or say, you know what, I'd rather have dinner out with you as time to catch up or a cup of coffee versus a gift. I do that with my girlfriends and we try to have dinner versus exchanging gifts. And we all enjoy it much more. So I think as a receiver, we have to make our wishes known. And as a giver, we need to rethink what we're doing. And I think over time, I think some of that will change.
Okay, I think there's one more question. When decluttering your closet, is it a good practice to take everything out of the closet and then put back what you want to keep?
I think so because how do you know if it's not all out? When I declutter my closet, I pull everything out, I throw it, I throw it on my bed, and then I wipe down the shelves and I vacuum the floor. And because I think people would be amazed to find out if they ask themselves, when's the last time they vacuumed the floor of their closet? However, then I put like items together. I put all my, long sleeved items together, all my short sleeved items together. Then I group them by colors. I know that may seem a little strange. I'm really not an OCD person, but this is how I know what I have or what I have too much of. And then I group them by colors and I'll decide, you know what, this black shirt's faded, so I'm not going to keep it. I'm really kind of OCD about my blacks matching. So like my black pants have to match my black shirt. I'm not going to wear different shades of black together. So if I get something that's faded, then I go ahead and I might replace that. So that's how I do it. But I think it's easier to pull it all out so you know what you've got. It's kind of hard to do a deep declutter if you don't know what you have and you can't group like items together.
All right. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions right now.
Well, we want to thank Carol Ann for her time. I'm sure many of us learned something new to take home and practice. We do encourage you all to complete our survey by using the QR code on the screen. This will also be sent to you right after and will be available on the Living Well website. Feel free to provide comments and suggestions. We like suggestions. We hope you have a wonderful day, and please register for the next series of Living Well Wednesday. And lastly, if you would like more information or additional resources, reach out to your local extension agent. If you're not sure where you can look for that, you can find it by going to ksre.kstate.edu and select the statewide locations. Again, we want to thank you and have a good rest of your afternoon and have a Merry Christmas. And thanks for attending.
Thank you.